Among people who are trying to decide between purchasing the Surface Duo and the Galaxy Z Fold 2, I think the primary concern, the primary reason you're looking at one of those devices instead of just a standard candy bar slab style phone has got to be productivity. There's really no other reason to buy one of those devices if you aren't looking for something you can be more productive or get more things done on. I suppose the Z Fold 2 could be a really phenomenal multimedia device, but you could just get a tablet if that's what you want. But the idea of having a tablet in your pocket allows you to be more productive, and perhaps that is why you're looking at that device, and for sure that is why you're looking at the Surface Duo. So in this video I'm going to take a pretty deep dive into productivity on both devices, and we're going to explore exactly how productive each device will let you be, how they differ, and how they are similar. So let's talk about what most of you would consider to be the easy aspect of this first. On the Surface Duo, of course, you do have two screens. However, you have the ability to fold this thing around into what they call phone mode. And while you're in phone mode, you do have one very wide screen. And my wallpaper usually isn't black, but in this moment it has decided to just simply be a black blank wallpaper. But you have a very wide screen, which I believe is conducive of getting things done in and of itself. Even in single screen phone mode, Surface Duo, I feel, is more productive because of that aspect ratio. You can simply see more on the screen at a time, and for me, that does help a lot. In particular, if you're the kind of person that wants to use a Surface Pen or something like that to take notes or whatever, that wider 4:3 aspect ratio is great for being productive. On the Z Fold 2, well, it's kind of the opposite. You have a very skinny, very tall screen. And for getting things done, this is not great for that. I do want to push back on the idea that this exterior screen is in some way useless, because it is 100% not useless. A lot of people have mentioned that they wished that the Surface Duo had some sort of exterior screen that was like something like what's on the Moto Razr or on the Z Flip, that would allow you to perhaps see notifications or quickly respond to a text message without having to actually open the device. Well, that's what you have on the Z Fold. You can get a text message and see that text message, respond to it here. And texting works just fine on this thing. You're not going to want to thumb type on it because it's so narrow, but swipe typing is just fine. In fact, if you want to spend your morning scrolling through Instagram, well, that's actually going to work just fine as well. Now, am I going to try to get something productive done on this screen? No, but if all I want to do is scroll through Twitter, respond to a text message, quickly do, a Google Assistant task, something like that, this outer screen is anything but useless. However, I think where things get truly interesting is when you open the Z Fold, or when you open up the Surface Duo and now you're dealing with two screens or one big tablet screen, and you're trying to do two tasks at once. True, proper multitasking, which is something that these two devices do better than any other device you can fit in your pocket. The question is, which one does it better? All right, so when you're going to do some multitasking on either one of these two devices, the Z Fold 2 or the Surface Duo, they're going to behave in pretty different ways, largely because this has two screens, this has one big screen. So I guess the first thing I need to do here is just show you kind of how this works. So let's say for me, I'm going to want to open up my email and let's do Twitter. Well, on Surface Duo, it is that easy. It's actually extraordinarily easy. It's really straightforward, and it is exactly what this device is meant to do. Even let's say I'm going to open up Outlook, but then I want to open up the Play Store. The Play Store is on that screen. I can simply swipe over and launch the Play Store. Easy as anything. And then you can also go to your app drawer and launch whatever app from here that you would like to launch. So that works incredibly easily on the Surface Duo. It is intuitive. On the Z Fold 2, it is a little bit different. So let's go ahead and launch Outlook. And now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm now going to launch Twitter. Well, I can't just go home and launch Twitter because that's just going to launch Twitter again. There's a couple photos of my dogs that I have posted. What you have to do is you have to launch Outlook or whichever app you're going to launch first. And then there's a little widget over here that you can swipe out from and you can customize this. And how this works is I've got Twitter in here. I'm going to long press Twitter, and now I can drag it. I can drag it anywhere I want it. I can drag it to the right, to the left, to the top, to the bottom, or in a floating window in the middle. I'm going to drag it to the right-hand side. Now I have Twitter and Outlook open simultaneously. Now, something I've heard from a lot of Surface Duo users when they talk about the Z Fold is they say, well, now great, you've got two skinny, narrow screens, which are not great for really getting anything done. And I actually tend to agree with you there. The good news is you can fix that for the most part. If you simply rotate the device like so, now you have two wide screens that are really actually pretty damn similar to the Surface Duo. In fact, if you open these up and let's go to the same screen on the Duo, you can see here that let's look at what's actually on screen. Are we getting any more content on this screen? Well, I'm getting to the beginning of this picture of this tweet retweeted from Wired, and over here I'm getting the same amount of content on the screen. Because if you actually just look at, if you ignore the bezels and you just look screen to screen, guess what? They're almost the same size. All right, so back on Surface Duo, let's say that I want to move Twitter to this other screen. Well, you can swipe it and you can just move it over there. Then you can go back over here and launch Outlook. On the Z Fold, it's a little bit different. What you're gonna do is you're gonna touch the middle and you just have a switch button and it just automatically switches it for you. On the Surface Duo, you have the ability to create app pairs where you can launch two apps simultaneously. I like using my two go-to weather apps in this way. Well, let's do something similar over here on the Z Fold. Let's go ahead and launch my radar. Now we're gonna pull this multitask window out. I don't have the other radar app in there, so we're gonna go to all apps, which is an option right there. We're gonna go over to radar scope. We're gonna drag it over. And there you go. You've got your two apps side by side. You touch the middle, and if you hit this button to the right, which I'm not going to do because I already have this saved, it will save that as an app pair. And now you can just launch it like so, and there you go. And when I saved it, I actually had it in this orientation. So we're actually going to fix that right now, and I'll show you. I'll show you how this works. So let's say I want to get rid of that app pair, or I want to get rid of any of this stuff here. You just simply hit that little pin icon. I can now get rid of it. I can add whatever app I want to add in here. Let's add Edge to that group because that is handy to have. And now I've edited that. So now let's launch that back again. And now I'm going to save it. Simple as that. You'll notice up here at the top, you have some of your recent apps that it thinks that you might want to use, and some of them are app pairs. So there's Twitter and Outlook again, still there just like it was earlier. Another key difference is that on Duo, you can go home on each individual screen, each individual app being open, whereas on the Z Fold, swiping home takes you fully home. You actually would need to either resize a window all the way over so that it is taking up the whole screen, or of course, swipe over from the right and then find the app that you would like to replace it with is another way to close an individual app. It's also worth pointing out that you can actually resize these apps. So I can bring this over here, get a little more of one, a little less of the other, or the other way around. You can also have more than two apps open, which is an advantage that the Z Fold has over the Surface Duo. And of course, all of this is resizable. So with the Surface Duo, apps like Instagram are just fine. There's actually two apps that I want to point out here that differ pretty wildly. One is YouTube Studio, which I'm not going to launch just for fear of maybe something being seen there that you guys shouldn't see. And the other one is going to be Instagram. Of course, on the Surface Duo, Instagram works relatively fine. On the Z Fold, Instagram will always launch in portrait mode, portrait orientation, and you can't really do any sort of split screen nonsense with it. It's not compatible. It will take up the whole screen. And in fact, once I close it, I'm gonna actually have to rotate this thing back around. YouTube Studio is the same way. So that's actually a big win for the Duo because the Duo doesn't care if the app uses a particular orientation or not. It's using it anyways. So one really super useful feature of the Surface Duo is the ability to long press and select text, and then long press it again and drag it onto another screen, and then have it entered there for sending or saving, whatever you need to do. On the Z Fold 2, this actually totally works almost identically the same way. That is one of my favorite features of the Duo, and I'm super pleased to have it available on the Z Fold. So here is another way where these two things behave really, really similarly. If you're going to open a link on this right screen, well, guess what? You can have things set up so that it's not going to occlude what's going on here. It's simply going to open it in the other window. And if on your Z Fold, if you've got your web browser already in split screen view with whatever you're using, that's a big distinction to make there. It will behave the same way. Now, obviously, if you only have one app open and you hit it, well, then you're going to occlude what you're doing with the app that you're using, and then you're going to have to go back in and reopen up that app in split window. And you can see how easy it is to use split window, but here's the thing. It is not easier than it is on Surface Duo, because on Surface Duo, it's as easy as just launching any app that you want to use, whereas on Z Fold, there is another action that needs to be taken. So to illustrate this one more time, opening the Play Store, opening Outlook, easy as can be. On the Z Fold, opening the Play Store, opening the drawer, and then dragging Outlook over, and now you've accomplished the same task. But there is that additional step in the middle, opening the drawer, dragging the app over. Once you're in this position, the two experiences are incredibly similar. And now these additional steps, while they are there, I do believe it's something that you'll probably get fairly used to, and something that might help along with that is if you're already in the Samsung ecosystem, perhaps you have one of their tablets, well, guess what? It's exactly the same interface as on those tablets. So if we jump over to the Galaxy Tab S7, well, let's do the same thing. There's the Play Store. Let's swipe over. I don't have Outlook on this. We're just going to use Twitter. Drag Twitter over, and there you go. It's literally the exact same action. And my point when I mention this is that you might be able to get used to that additional gesture such that it stops feeling like you're doing anything at all. Will it ever, in actuality, be easier than it is on the Surface Duo, which, you know, there's no additional action at all? It's just as simple as launching an app? No, probably not. But will it eventually get to where it is second nature and you're not bothered by it? Well, that is a possibility. Okay, so since filming the bit you just saw, I've noticed a couple of things about the Z Fold 2 in terms of multitasking that I think really edge the Duo into a bigger lead in this aspect. So when you're using the Surface Duo to do two things at once, there are two things it does that make it quite a bit better than the Z Fold 2. So the first one is that when I go to type something, I'm only going to get a keyboard on one side of the device, on one screen. So this other screen remains totally unobstructed and totally visible exactly the same. That is really, really good. Now, when you jump over to the Z Fold 2 and you get it into a similar situation, when I go to type, of course, the keyboard spans the entire device, thereby occluding what is on the left side of the screen. So if you're trying to type over here and referencing something on this screen, well, that's going to be a whole heck of a lot harder to do. I am using Gboard here. I'm not using the default keyboard, but the default keyboard had the same sort of behavior. Unless there's a keyboard I don't know of that will somehow shrink itself to only be on half the screen, I don't think that exists. That is a problem. Here is another issue. When you're dealing with two apps here, if I want to go back on either one of these devices, I can simply go back on the screen that that app is on, and it knows I want to go back here or here. With the Z Fold 2, it does not know that. It's going to default to the last app that was active. You see the little blue line up there? Well, if I'm touch over here, now the blue line is moved to there, which means this window is active. So if I want to go back on Twitter, I can't just go back because it's going to go back. It just closed my email because back on that email on the main page closed it. You would have to actually touch the app you want to go back on, then go back. And yes, those are relatively minor things, but in the grand scheme of all the things, that I think pushes the Duo into another level in terms of split screen multitasking. I do want to also quickly point out that the Surface Duo, of course, does have compatibility with a stylus like the Surface Pen, Whereas the Z Fold 2 does not have any support for any sort of an active stylus in that way. And I also want to make it really clear that, yes, the Surface Duo can do something like play a game or watch a video while something else is going on here. Maybe you've got a game here and a YouTube video here. Well, the Z Fold 2 can do that also. You can have a game with a YouTube video playing above that game. Now, one place where the Z Fold 2 has a major ace up its sleeve is with Samsung DeX. Many of you can remember back when Microsoft had something called Continuum. Well, DeX is basically Continuum, but the Z Fold has this and the Surface Duo does not. If you want to use DeX, it's really quite simple. You're going to unlock your Z Fold 2. You're going to go into your notification shade and you're going to look for DeX, which in my screen is right down there. Once you activate DeX, you're going to plug this into your computer via USB-C, and you can go ahead and set your phone down. You do have to download the DeX app on your computer, and this can be done wirelessly on some TVs, and there are other ways to do DeX, but for what I'm doing, I am using it on the computer. So if we jump over here, well, this is the DeX environment being run on my second monitor. What can you do in DeX? Well, you can do a lot of things. Let's just launch the Play Store. What you're going to immediately notice is that we are windowed. We are not just running a full screen app. Let's actually drag this over and snap it to the side, just like in Windows 10. How cool is that? I can scroll through here just fine. Let's open up my app drawer and let's launch Google Edge. Of course, I meant Microsoft Edge. Google did not make Edge. Well, they kind of did, but not really. So now I've got Edge open next to the Play Store. Let's go ahead and snap that over here. We'll select the Play Store. Now I've got two things running at once. You've got a home button down here, which takes everything away. You've got a back button, and you've got a multitasking button, which will pull up every app that you've had running. And the really nifty thing about this should be pretty obvious to you. It's the exact same apps, and it's the exact same continuity as I had on my phone. You've got a quick settings toggle over here. You've got notifications, a screenshot button, volume. You've actually got an on-screen keyboard if you do need to use that, but of course I do not because I have a keyboard in front of me. You can customize what you have on your desktop here. Here's a pretty wild feature. Let's say there's a file on your computer where you can simply drag them off of DeX and into your actual computer, perhaps on your other monitor, and you can transfer files that way. That is absolutely wonderful. You can pin different apps to your taskbar down here. Also, super useful. And obviously, this interface, this home screen, is totally customizable and is totally separate from what you're going to get on your phone. I don't think I need to spend too much time on this. The usefulness of being able to get work done on your phone, come home, plug this into your computer, and now pick up where you left off in a desktop environment with Windows and all of these proper productivity and multitasking tools. That's obviously really, really good, isn't it? For me, this battle between the Z Fold and the Surface Duo is an interesting one because what Surface Duo does better than any device is handle two apps simultaneously. It is better than what is on the Z Fold 2. That is my opinion, but I think it's a relatively well-defended opinion. However, the Z Fold 2 is not miles behind the Duo. It's closer than any other device while still losing, yes, but it's not miles behind it in two-app multitasking. But then Fold does offer so many other features on top of that it starts to become really interesting in terms of what device is going to be the better fit in your pocket. Sure, Duo is better with two apps at once, but Duo doesn't have Continuum or DeX. So you have to ask yourself, does DeX bridge that gap for you? How much do you value photography? Well, maybe you check out my photography comparison between the two. Does photography help bridge that gap where you're like, well, I'm not going to be as productive on my Fold, but I really need a good camera. Yes, Duo is better at multitasking, but I really need an NFC. I really need wireless charging. These are the questions that you're going to have to answer for yourself. So guys, stay tuned for much more coverage of the Galaxy Z Fold, of the Surface Duo, and even more comparisons between the two. Like I've already said, if there's a specific thing you want to see me cover, please leave it in the comments down below, and I'll do my best to get that covered in an upcoming video. Stay tuned for those upcoming videos, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friend.